So more and more I am seeing homeschool families set up homeschool rooms, and they are beautiful. Often they're white, clean, neat, quiet, and peaceful looking. There's a desk for every child to have their own designated space. They all have their own supplies on hand, their own curriculum on hand, and it looks great. But you don't have to do that to homeschool your child. I do not have a homeschool room, and I want to share with you today some reasons why. Hi and welcome. If you're new, I am a homeschool graduate and a homeschooling mom of 3 young ones. And my oldest is in preschool/kindergarten, and my next down is just starting preschool. So today I want to share with you some reasons that I do not have a homeschool room. I see these around, and I feel like they're becoming more common than they used to be when I was homeschooled. I don't remember any of my friends or their families having homeschool rooms. We homeschooled in the living room, we homeschooled at the kitchen table. Maybe a child would take it to their personal room if they needed quiet, but I do not remember in any of my acquaintances having a designated room for this. So I don't know if it's just that my general circle didn't, or if it's actually becoming more and more common of a thing in this generation versus the last. For what it's worth, I get the appeal of a homeschool room. I look at the beautiful clean white rooms and I go, oh man, I would love to do that. I love having things neat and orderly, organized. I love things having designated spaces. And I get the appeal of a room that is quiet and away from the distractions of the home. I understand that. But I don't think it's necessary. Not for most people, and I think especially if you're somebody who struggles with having the room to do that, it's definitely not necessary. And there are actually some pros to not having a homeschool room, and I thought I would share those with you today. So first pro to not having a homeschool room would be that I can do other things while homeschooling my child or children. I can, if we're at the kitchen table, I can stand up while she's doing her work and walk 2 feet away to the kitchen sink. And I am still there for questions, I'm still there to coach her, I'm still there to make sure she doesn't get distracted, to guide her in what she's doing, but I can put a few dishes in the dishwasher while I'm still present in the room. Now, I get that the con side of this is that you're distracted by the things that you need to do, right? Like, it's nice to be in a room that's separate from all your housework so that you don't think about your housework and you can really focus on your children. But at the same time, it is really nice to be able to do some things while your children are working and while you're listening to the audiobook of history that you're doing without having to be away from the rest of the house. I have a lot of other things that need to get done along with homeschool, and it's not necessarily practical or ideal for me to be in another spot of the room, another place of the house away from my other things for hours during the day. I need to be able to intermix. Again, another reason, my children are young, and even if my children were older, to be honest, I don't know that I would be able to walk away and leave them in a room of the house by themselves without me present and expect them not to goof off or fight or to really study hard. So I feel like I would have to be present in that room. So that's just one thing to think about. Do you have the ability to be away from the rest of your house? I don't. My children are young, I have a lot of things going, and I have a baby toddling around. Just over 1 year. I can't take my baby into the homeschool room. I mean, I could set up crafts and activities for him, but he would soon tire of those. And I can't leave my baby toddling around the other part of the house while I'm in a homeschool room with my children. So it really isn't practical in that sense for me as a very young mom with young children. Another reason that I don't have a homeschool room is I actually think that it is a skill that your children can learn to study and do work and focus with distractions around them. I grew up homeschooling with 6 siblings. And when we began homeschooling, we were in a single wide mobile home. We had some other spaces outside where people slept in like a fifth wheel. Some of the kids and parents slept there, but we homeschooled in a single wide mobile home. That does not give you a lot of space to get away from your siblings. It doesn't give you a room of peace and quiet, let alone half a room or any amount. You sat on the couch, you sat on the floor, you sat at the table, and there were siblings all over doing things. And mom was in the kitchen cooking right next to where I was studying. But truth told, it has given me a great skill, one that I have had multiple bosses comment on, that I can work in just about any environment. I can work with distractions gung-ho around me, and I can still do what I need to do. And I've had multiple people comment on it. Wow, you can really accomplish things even with the chaos in the background. It's a great skill to have. And to be honest, there is only one distraction that I really cannot work through without really having a hard time, and that is a television screen, which we did not have growing up. So the one distraction that was never really set around me is one thing that I really have a hard time focusing when that is going in the background. Just about anything else I can block out if I need to. And I don't mind my children learning that skill. I don't mind them learning that they can focus and be intentional and that they can learn and do school and work with distractions. Now, with that said, I get there are times and maybe particular classes, especially as children get older, that they may need to go separate aside for a time, and that they're just really having a hard time. They need to find that quiet place to focus, and that there are different children. Some children may have a harder time with that skill than others, but I do think that children can learn that, and I think it is a valuable skill to be had. And so setting my children aside all the time in a room by themselves that's perfectly free of distraction, that's quiet, and the great environments for studying, it's just not practical. I would like them to learn how to study and how to focus in real life. If they need to set aside a time or a space to do that at points, that is great. And I'm not going to discourage my child from taking some time aside so that they can focus. But as a general rule, I want them to learn to be able to focus with other people in the room, with other people doing other things and noises and distraction and just life happening. So it's actually a skill that I would like my children to develop. Another plus to not having a homeschool room is, you see everybody with their desks at the homeschool room, and each desk has its own set of supplies. I don't buy separate supplies for each of my children to have in each of their spots. We have a caddy, we have a caddy of pens and pencils, glue, scissors, the basic supplies, and I take that out and I put that in the middle of the table and everybody gets what they need from it. They don't all have their own supplies. And so I don't buy 3 different sets of supplies when I'm homeschooling 3 children. I buy one set that everybody uses, and it works fine. And it's, I guess, more cost effective for me that way. I don't have a whole bunch of half-used pencils from every child. You all use the same ones until they're used up. And it just cuts down on what I shop for at the beginning of the school year. And then I guess I would say, honestly, isn't it one of the things I love about homeschooling and I loved about being homeschooled is that we are not sending our kids in a sterile, sit down at the desk environment all day. I mean, that's one thing that I love about the fact that I'm not sending my child to school from 8 to 3, right? They're not bored sitting at a desk as a young child should not be. Now, older children can take that better, but I've got, a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old, and if I sat them at a desk, they just wiggle and squirm, and they just can't handle that. And one of the things that I love about homeschooling is that we don't have to do that. I'm not setting them to sit at a desk. And even for an older child than me as a 13-year-old being homeschooled, I loved the fact that I could get up and homeschool in my pajamas once in a while. Now, we didn't do that all the time, but it's great to be able to do. I love the fact that I could get a cup of water, a cup of tea, and I could sit on the couch and I could study on the couch and be comfortable. I could get a cozy blanket and read my history in a cozy blanket. I didn't have to sit at a desk still and quiet in a sterile environment. And I love that. And it's something I want to be able to give my children is the comfort of home while learning. And home is the environment they're comfortable in. And so you learn best when you're in, I think, when you're comfortable, when you're in a normal environment, when you're not intimidated or things aren't different than normal. And so I think actually giving my children the ability to homeschool in their normal home environment is a great gift that I can give them, and something to be comfortable when learning is wonderful. Instead, what we do instead of a homeschool room is we homeschool at the kitchen table. Now, my children are young, so they do need me present right now, but as they get older, they can homeschool at the table. They'll be able to homeschool on the couch, in the living room. Like I said, if a child really needs to take some time away to study something, I'm okay with them going to their bedroom or another space in the house. But right now, we homeschool at the table. And I have a homeschool cart that I keep in my husband's office next to the shelf of homeschool books that I have. And we roll that out to the table and we do our homeschool there, and then we roll it back out of sight. And if you're interested in seeing what I have in my homeschool cart, I will put a link below to a video that I just did last week showing inside my homeschool cart and how I organize that and use it. So check that out if you're interested. But it makes it easy, and I don't have to dedicate an entire room of my house to homeschooling, which I do have the room for if I were willing to sacrifice our guest room or our room upstairs that's extra. But I'm not. I value those other spaces more than I value having a room set aside. But honestly, I do get the appeal. I understand why people do it. I just don't think it's necessary. And I think if you're looking at homeschooling and coming into it and seeing all this and going, I don't have space for that, or I don't have budget for that, or you have to do that. No, you don't. I know from experience being homeschooled that is not necessary. So just wanted to share some reasons why I have chosen not to set up a homeschool room and why I think you don't have to. But if it's something that you want to do and you feel like would be a good environment for you and your children, then there's nothing wrong with it. I just want to set out some alternatives for other people. So I really appreciate you joining me. If you enjoy this content, please go ahead and like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos and just to help me build up my channel. And I look forward to seeing you next time.